Hi everyone, my name is Andrei Jikh. Hope you're doing great. The Federal Reserve, aka Jerome Powell, the printer's Powell, just came out and gave a very dire warning about the economy and its future if we don't do a few things. And that was a very complicated conversation and it was hard for my little brain to understand, but here's one of the things he said.
The scope and speed of this downturn are without modern precedent, significantly worse than any recession since World War II. We are seeing a severe decline in economic activity and in employment, and already the job gains of the last decade have been erased.
So here's how we fix it, Felix. We turn on the machines and we go, because they're turning on the machines to print the dollars. No? All right. It's like you wanted to make this $10 worth twice as much, so you made twice as many, but worth only half as much. But you didn't stop there because you got greedy. So you took a bite of the system and all you did was just devalue what you already had, and you created a hole in your money supply. It's not bad. I like that. That was a cute story. But also that does not at all explain how the Federal Reserve prints money or debases the dollar. That analogy is such a stretch, it just doesn't make sense. Whatever you do, don't play it back in slow motion, otherwise it will make sense and you'll know how I did it. No, you won't. Who are we kidding? Have you learned nothing? My tricks are like ideas. They're bulletproof. So Nancy Pelosi and the House of Representatives introduced a new bill that pumps $3 more trillion into our economy. And with that money, we're gonna get another round of $1,200 stimulus checks, in addition to extending the $600 per week unemployment benefits through January of 2021 instead of July 2020 like it is right now. It also provides hazard pay to some essential workers, and it provides relief and forgiveness for up to $10,000 for federal and private student loans, which is pretty cool. The bill is being voted on today, like right now. Of course, the Republicans, no. So it's unlikely that it's gonna get passed, but now you're all caught up. So Jerome Powell came on with the most, guys, I'm just doing my job, face ever to try to explain the consequences of the economy. So let's play the video.
This downturn is different from those that came before it. Earlier in the post-World War II period, recessions were sometimes linked to a cycle of high inflation, followed by Fed tightening.
So Jerome Powell's saying here that this recession is very unique, but newsflash, this is true of all recessions. They are all unique, and that's why they don't have a playbook on how to fix this one immediately. And throughout history, we've had periods of high inflation, which is where the Federal Reserve would pump a lot of money to provide liquidity into the economy, which is a way of providing people money so we can spend and invest it. And this includes everything from cash, bonds, treasury bills, any other asset that can go from one form to another, as opposed to something like real estate, for example, which is not considered liquid at all because it's made from bricks and not liquids. No, because when you sell your house, it takes a while to go from house into actual cash, from one form to another. And this liquidity is provided and injected by the Federal Reserve in order to spur economic activity. And in order to spur YouTube activity, I gotta inject some liquidity into myself, if you don't mind. Liquidified. Now, Fed tightening means they wanna be tight with us. They just wanna be homies. Now it means it's the opposite of providing liquidity. So they're gonna tighten their balance sheets and they're gonna spend less money. Now doing this raises interest rates, which translates to more reasonable house prices usually, because then it becomes more expensive to borrow money. And for savers like you and I, it's actually a good thing because our savings accounts start to generate more interest and we make more money, which is a good thing. Now a tight Fed policy works better during a healthy functioning economy, and a loose Fed policy is better to heat up the economy so we can spur it and keep it going when it's not sure what's about to happen, like what's going on right now. And consequently, indubitably, this also leads to higher inflation rates. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, and right now we are loose like sleeve of wizard.
The lower inflation levels of recent decades have brought a series of long expansions, often accompanied by the buildup of imbalances over time. Asset prices that reached unsupportable levels, for instance, or important sectors of the economy, such as housing, that boomed unsustainably.
Okay, so here he's basically saying that we've had some great healthy growth in the past, but that naturally led to an imbalance in investment values, which eventually led to unsustainably high asset prices, like for example, real estate, which can confirm I'm a millennial, still cannot afford a decent house.
The current downturn is unique in that it is attributable to the virus and the steps taken to limit its fallout. This time, high inflation was not a problem. There was no economy-threatening bubble to pop and no unsustainable boom to bust. The virus is the cause, not the usual suspects.
Remember that old song? Wasn't me? That's basically what Jerome Powell is saying here. He's like, nah, wasn't me. Wasn't the Federal Reserve or my machine. That's not what caused this bubble to pop. There was no bubble. This wasn't the corporate debt bubble. This wasn't the credit card debt bubble or the student loan or real estate or anything else like that. It was because of the Llorona. That's what caused this whole thing to go down. The difficult thing about predicting and calling something a bubble is that there's a fine line between sustainable high levels of debt and an actual bubble. Kind of like real estate prices in LA, where they're so ridiculously high, they're unaffordable, but can we really expect them to remain at this level or continue to grow at the levels that they have in the past? I don't know, maybe we can, and maybe that's not a bubble after all, who knows, but I can say with 100% certainty that this right here is in fact a bubble.
While the economic response has been both timely and appropriately large, it may not be the final chapter, given that the path ahead is both highly uncertain and subject to significant downside risks.
So here he's saying, I did as best as I could. That's what I'd be trying to do. But then Congress took my progress and they mixed it up and put some Jell-O bread pudding in it. Basically what he's saying is that yes, the economic response has been good, but maybe it's not enough considering everything else that's going on. And because we're reopening the economy, this is just one giant gamble and it may not work out in our favor. And if we have to shut down, instead of being reactive about our policies, we should be proactive and help people out right now. And I actually think that's really smart.
How quickly and sustainably will it be brought under control? Can new outbreaks be avoided as social distancing measures lapse? How long will it take for confidence to return and normal spending to resume? And what will be the scope and timing of new therapies, testing, or a vaccine? The answers to these questions will go a long way towards setting the timing and pace of the economic recovery.
Remember those logic problems when you were in school that's like, Jack is 3 years older than Pete, and Pete is 3 years older than Kelly. Kelly is twice as old as Jack. What is the circumference of the moon? The translation basically is that there is too many variables to try to calculate how long it'll take for an economic recovery. But once we do know what the variables are, then we'll get a better idea. But the problem with that is by the time we know what the variables are and we can plug it in, it'll be too late to do anything about it. But what's most interesting to me is Jerome Powell's recovery, where I have yet to see a real collapse. Sure, the jobs market is pretty much the worst it's ever been, but that's just one aspect of the economy. What about real estate prices, which are pretty much the highest they've ever been? What about stock prices, which are still high considering what's going on? If we compare everything right now to 2008, if it's anything like that, which by Jerome Powell's own words, he's compared today to World War II and that it could be just as bad. Well, in that case, it took us 3 years after 2008 happened for us to feel the pain of rock bottom prices in real estate. 3 years after that recession. How long after this recession will we feel asset prices go down? Is it going to take us 3 years? Is it going to take us 10 years or a few months? Regardless of what the time span is of how long it takes us to get to the bottom, I think we can both agree that the real pain hasn't even started yet. This next part is even darker.
The record shows that deeper and longer recessions can leave behind lasting damage to the productive capacity of the economy. Avoidable household and business insolvencies can weigh on growth for years to come. Long stretches of unemployment can damage or end workers' careers as their skills lose value and professional networks dry up, and leave families in greater debt.
So here's where I think he's absolutely right. The longer we allow this recession to exist, the longer we stay home, the longer we do not participate, the worse off we're gonna be later down the road. Think of it like running a mile. Maybe you fall down and you hurt yourself and you sprain your ankle, but maybe you could still limp home and it's gonna hurt, but it's not until the next day when you wake up that you realize, oh my God, you broke something and now it really starts to hurt. So the longer that you stay out of the sport, the more out of shape you get and the harder it becomes to start running again competitively. And the same is true in this case. The more and the longer that we stay out of the job market and the longer we don't participate, those professional relationships and those skills could be potentially replaced by other people.
The loss of thousands of small and medium-sized businesses across the country would destroy the life's work and family legacy of many businesses and community leaders, and limit the strength of the recovery when it comes. These businesses are a principal source of job creation, something we will need sorely as people seek to return to work.
So here he said something really true, which is small mom and pop businesses are struggling the most right now, and they're gonna become very important as corporations stop hiring people, as they hire less and less people to come back to work, and small businesses would typically be there to absorb some of those job losses. But without those small businesses, which are struggling so much right now, things are gonna be even worse. And I can attest to this because I used to work for a small business for nearly 10 years, and I know just how important they are to the economy.
A prolonged recession and weak recovery could also discourage business investment and expansion, further limiting the resurgence of jobs as well as the growth of the capital stock and the pace of technological advancement. The result could be an extended period of low productivity growth and stagnant incomes.
So here he's basically saying what I just said. Even though the pain isn't felt right now, it will come in the future in the form of slowed economic growth, because companies will make less products, they'll take less risk, they'll hire less people, and as a result, their stock prices will grow not as much as they used to. Our incomes will slow down in their growth, and just everything will be worse off in the future.
We ought to do what we can to avoid these outcomes, and that may require additional policy measures. At the Fed, we will continue to use our tools to their fullest until the crisis has passed and the economic recovery is well underway. Recall, though, that the Fed has lending powers, not spending powers. A loan from a Fed facility can provide a bridge across temporary interruptions to liquidity, and those loans will help many borrowers get through the current crisis. But the recovery may take some time to gather momentum, and the passage of time can turn liquidity problems into solvency problems. Additional fiscal support could be costly, but worth it if it helps avoid long-term damage and leaves us with a stronger recovery. This trade-off is one for our elected representatives who wield powers of taxation and spending.
I can't do this alone, bros. The Fed can only do so much. You need to step in and help me figure this out. Basically what he's saying is that Congress is so indecisive that they have to get together to figure something out quick, because the longer that we stay indecisive, the more this becomes into a debt crisis. And then at that point, they can't just lend out more money to solve the issue, and the businesses of all sizes from small to large are just gonna start failing, and then the dollar is gonna be worth nothing. He didn't say that last part, but that's basically what it all means. Now, I know we laugh and use the Federal Reserve as the proverbial piñata for all of our jokes, but let's get serious for a second. If you were the Fed, would you not print all that money? Would you really let the entire economic system fail as it is? The way I'm trying to look at it is from both sides, and to realize that it is a lose-lose proposition. Because if we do decide to let the corporations fail, if we stop paying people stimulus checks, if we let people lose their homes, then this will have an impact on millions of people's lives, including our grandparents, our parents, our children's future's job prospects, and of course on ourselves and the rest of the world economy that so heavily depends on the US, on the strength of the dollar, and for trade. But as an investor in the stock market, I really do want the stock market to fail, because I want to buy more dividend stocks cheaper that pay me money every single month. And I really do want the real estate market to fall, because I want to buy a house for cheaper, and it's my turn already. But if I was to think outside of my own selfish greed and ask myself, is my benefit really worth the lives of other people? And when thinking about it like that, it seems like a bailout really is the lesser of all evils, because thinking outside my own selfish interests, really, someone who's fortunate enough to be making money right now and to be able to invest it, I don't want to see others fail or lose so much just for my own benefit. But I also realize that a bailout is a double-edged sword, and what helps us out today will hurt us tomorrow. So it's almost like bail out, hurt tomorrow, or let everything fail and hurt today. None of those options are pleasant. So because of that, I try to be neutral and not blame the Democrats or the Republicans or even the president or the Fed, because I don't think anyone has any idea of what's about to happen, and they're all scared and they're all trying their best. But sure, some of them, if not most of them, are acting in their own self-interest to preserve their jobs and their net worths in retirement. I get it, but the big picture of what's about to happen in the future is something we will only know once we get there. So I guess this video is more of a reminder to myself, and maybe to you watching, to continue to stay productive and maybe learn some new skills in this crazy brand new world that we're living in right now. Not this skill, this is completely pointless and will not get you paid, but it is a lot of fun. But I don't think things will ever go back to the way they were. because that's how they got us here in the first place. And while you're doing that, don't forget to get your 2 free stonks, one from Webull. By funding your account $100, you'll get 1 free stock valued up to $1,400. Get your other free stock from Robinhood. That's 2 stocks right there to get you started with investing for free. Follow me on Instagram, and in the meantime, help me caption this photo because, let's face it, you've got nothing better to do with your time, and neither do I. Love you all. Thank you so much for watching. See you back here on Monday and Friday, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.